Keep looking into it. Don't let the truth hold you back. Senator Inhofe is also a long-term associate of the secretive religious organization in Washington that's known as The Family. The Family, among other things, provides well below market rent housing for a select group of members of Congress at its tax-exempt church on Capitol Hill. It's called C Street. We first started discussing C Street and The Family on this show when it emerged as a key player in not 2 but 3 Republican sex scandals this summer. Those of Mark Sanford, John Ensign, and former Congressman Chip Pickering. But the family's links to these sex scandals proved to be an alarming window into other aspects of The Family and C Street that were, frankly, even more surprising. The fact that members of the group not only confess their misdeeds to one another, but that they then apparently swear themselves to secrecy about the group to the outside world. The theocratic vision of the group, which holds that powerful men, and it is almost all men, are God's chosen, and they're not bound by the same morality and responsibility to others as normal people are. That Hitler and Mao and Osama bin Laden should be studied and considered as models of power and leadership by members of the family. Well, now, thanks in part to Senator James Inhofe, there is something new to consider about C Street and the family. Why are they sending members of Congress on foreign trips? Here's Senator Inhofe speaking about the family dispatching him to Africa. The person, Doug, who he mentions in this clip here, is Doug Coe, who's been the longtime leader of the family.
Doug has always been kind of behind the scenes and very quiet. He taught me into going to Africa, and I had no interest in going to Africa. At the same day that after 10 years of saying no to him, I said, all right, I will. I never will understand why I said that, but I did. I call it the political philosophy of Jesus, something that had kind of been put together by Doug, at least this is my interpretation.
Doug Coe, by the way, of the National Prayer Breakfast Movement and other things.
Oh, yeah. And it's all scripturally based. Acts 9:15, you know, what did Jesus say to Paul on the road to Damascus? He said, take my name, Jesus, to the kings. And, of course, if you're a member of the United States Senate in Africa, they think you're important, so you can always get in to see the kings.
You always get in to see the kings. Well, in December, the Oklahoman newspaper reported that Senator Inhofe's trips to Africa have cost taxpayers more than $187,000 in the past decade. In other words, Senator Inhofe is representing U.S. interests on trips paid for by U.S. taxpayers, but by his own admission, he's using that time abroad to talk about the family's theology with foreign leaders. And he isn't the only one. Joining us now is Jeff Sharlet, contributing editor at Harper's and Rolling Stone, also author of the book The Family, The Secret Fundamentalism at the Heart of American Power. He's also got an excellent new article on thedailybeast.com. Jeff, thanks very much for coming back on the show.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me back.
Why is the family sending members of Congress to foreign countries?
Well, as I first reported in Harper's Magazine, their goal, their long-term goal, is 200 world leaders that are God-led and united through the family. They're not like the rapture Christians you might be familiar with. They have this idea that Christ can't come back till they can build a worldwide movement that they call invisible. That's their word, of strongmen, authoritarian leaders on that Hitler, Stalin, Mao model that they are linking together and that they have access, the leader says, with Washington as the capital of a worldwide spiritual offensive.
So what kind of places then do they dispatch members of the family to, and what do those family members do once they get there?
Well, some real bastions of democracy. Senator Inhofe has traveled to Afghanistan, Pakistan. Other members have gone to Serbia, Sudan, Belarus, Albania. Senator Coburn, who's been in the news for his role in the C Street House, was actually very clear what he was doing in Lebanon. He was trying to set up Christian prayer cells in the government of Lebanon. Prayer cells just like the one that helped cover up his pal Senator Ensign's scandal. And this in a country that's long been torn by Christian-Muslim tensions. Everywhere they go, as he says, it's the political philosophy of Jesus, but what they understand that to mean is not democracy, but rule through an iron fist.
So when Senator Inhofe used that phrase, the political philosophy of Jesus, something put together by Doug, what he's talking about there is the family's essentially foreign policy as driven by this sort of theocracy of power that we've talked about so much in learning about C Street.
It really is. It's a faith-based foreign policy. It's not a faith I think any Christians out there would be comfortable with. This goes back to the beginning of this group and how they're so much different than other Christian groups. Their concerns are what they call biblical capitalism, and their motto of many years was worldwide spiritual offensive. Working with the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, I was able to discover that they're taking that spiritual offensive to countries like Poland, Czech Republic, really all over the world, every country in the world.
When these trips are paid for by Senate committees, when they're taxpayer funded, there's obviously a concern as to whether or not that's legal. As I understand it, the legality of groups like this funding foreign trips for members of Congress has changed in the past few years, hasn't it?
There was. There's an Open Government Act in 2007 following the Jack Abramoff scandals designed to prevent just the kind of travel that the family was funding. That travel may even have been illegal even under the old rules, because some of these groups were saying that they were going for one Christian right group, the Christian Embassy, but it was actually being financed by this other group, the family. More recently, as you mentioned, Inhofe, Congressman McIntyre, Congressman Crenshaw, these guys have been traveling using money from the House and Senate Armed Services Committee. Two of them were actually using American military transport planes. They are diverting those planes from their proper missions to go and spread their very unorthodox political philosophy of Jesus to foreign leaders who might not think that that's a real solid basis for foreign policy.
Jeff, sometimes these trips are initiated by the family but paid for by taxpayers, as you described. But sometimes the family pays for them directly. You've reported that the family spent more than $95,000 on foreign travel for 20 lawmakers since the year 2000. Who are they sending on these trips? And when the family funds stuff directly, how do members of Congress explain who it is that's dispatching them to these other countries?
Well, what was fascinating, Senator Ensign was one of them, and Senator Ensign, when challenged by the Las Vegas Sun to explain this, said he had no idea. He just took, can you imagine, Rachel, if someone says, here's $10,000, why don't you take a trip to the Middle East? And you say, sure, I'm not going to ask who's sending me. Of course he understood what he was doing. He's been a part of the group for a long time. Congressman Frank Wolf, Congressman John Carter, all these guys have been traveling on the International Foundation, which is one of the family's nonprofits. They've been traveling on the dime of that organization, and yet not really being very forthright with us about what they're doing.
The International Foundation is the name of the one that usually cites, is that what you said? The International Foundation?
Yeah, the family believes, as David Coe, one of the leaders, the son of Doug Coe, once explained, he says, we operate like the mafia, and one of the ways that they do that is, just like the mafia has shell companies, the family has multiple nonprofits, the International Foundation, the Fellowship Foundation, the C Street Foundation, and they use these to sort of move money around and to support projects that they're interested in without building a big institutional image. And I think that's why they're actually teaming up with other Christian right organizations like Christian Embassy, Youth with a Mission, these kinds of organizations, to use congressmen essentially as their missionaries to and for the powerful.
I can hear the sound of enterprising bloggers putting those names into search engines of FEC filings right now. Jeff Sharlet, contributing editor at Harper's and Rolling Stone, author of the book The Family, The Secret Fundamentalism at the Heart of American Power, currently selling out at a bookstore near you. Jeff, thanks very much for coming on the show again.
Thank you, Rachel.
Coming up on Countdown, Governor Howard Dean guest hosts and does a very good job of it. Very exciting. And next on this show, an update on the Birthers Caucus in the United States Congress. We're sort of becoming the place that keeps track of these people for some reason. Stay tuned.